Sorry. One. Welcome to the European Roundtables 2021, organized by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy and Ideas from Europe. My name is Sonja van Meerbeek. I'm the director of the Sustainable Scale-up Foundation. We run the Ideas from Europe program. And together with Tess Rutgers, a strategic advisor at the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, we run today's session. Today is all about impact entrepreneurship, the uptake of impact entrepreneurship, impact investment, and impact innovation. And the last 2 days during the European roundtables, all kinds of innovative entrepreneurs have worked together with corporates, with scientists, with policymakers to come to tangible calls to action needed to not only create markets, but also to realize market breakthroughs needed, especially all in the field of personalized medicine, space wisdom for smart cities, people flows, and energy storage solutions. And I hear you think, what does all those subjects have to do with each other? But really, there is so much in common, because in all these themes, they have related issues, they have related challenges, especially in the field of digitalization. So today is a wrap-up of all these sessions. The representatives are going to tell what they have been discussing, what they've learned, and their calls to action to audience, to panelists inside here and also online. But first, I want, before I introduce the panelists to you, I want to welcome our other online participants. A note for you, you can use the chat function. There are people here working on the chat. If there is time, we can answer your questions. And you are muted, but when we give you the floor, you can take the floor. And for our viewers on YouTube, well, there isn't a chat function over there. But if you have any questions, of course, go to our website or on Twitter, and we try to answer you. So today, panelists, we have 6. First is Clémence Ros. Clémence, I see you online. Hello, welcome. Clémence will join us. She is a non-executive board member, and she is here because she is the ambassador of life science and health sector in the Netherlands. Welcome. We have Bart de Lathouwer. He's in the room. Bart, you're the president, and I have to say it correctly, Open Geospatial Consortium. Welcome. We have Paul Iske. He's not yet online, but will be joining later on. He is the chairman of Personalized Healthcare Catalyst Foundation and the professor of innovation at the Maastricht University. Then we have Joëlle Vrijters. Is she also? Yeah, hello, there you are. She was here yesterday, but now online. She is many things: non-executive board member, investor, tech entrepreneur, and also a member of the independent commission of the ministry's capital, of the ministry's seed funds. And we have Stefan Raas. I also see you there. Hello, Stefan. He's joining from the OECD because he is their policy analyst, SMEs and entrepreneurship. And last but not least, Focko, he's in the room. He's the Director General of Enterprise and Innovation of the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policies. Welcome to you all. So before I will introduce the first representative of our first session, I would give the floor to Focko, because I think you have some words to say about why the ministry is organizing events like this, where all people come together.
Indeed, I have. And I'm very glad that we have this session here and that we can talk about business and doing good. This is exactly what we are aiming at. We are aiming at going from innovation to impact. And going from innovation to impact, you need knowledge institutions, you need public organizations, but you also need enterprises. And this is something which we act on in events like this, where we work together, where we drive for calls for action, and where we actually go for these calls for action and come into action. And this is what we need, because great ideas are good, and they can address all large challenges we have in the world. But to go to impact, you need entrepreneurship, you need entrepreneurs, you need people who see how they can bring ideas to people's homes, how they can bring ideas to people's lives. And so I'm very glad we are in this event today and discussing the calls to action and the results of the past few days, where entrepreneurs, public organizations, knowledge institutions were together and worked on these calls for action. So I'm very glad to be here, and I'm all ears to hear what was achieved in these last couple of days.
Thank you, Foucault, because in line with that, we were saying that in order to create impact, the entrepreneurs are a big driver to realize our goals, but it's actually about entrepreneurship. It's also about the environment we create for these entrepreneurs to be successful. And as I recall, you mentioned you studied Schumpeter. So I actually had to look into it a bit further. And what I liked about it is that it has two stages. One is the emphasis on the primary impact, the innovatory ideas, excuse me. And the other one, the second one, is deals with the subsequent responses obtained from the application of these innovations. And that is so important, like we said, entrepreneurship. And another interesting thought in line with Mariana Mazzucato is that she says it's all about fundamentally restructure capitalism to make it inclusive, sustainable, driven by innovation that tackles concrete problems, which means changing government tools and culture, creating new markets of corporate governance, and ensure that corporates, government, and society all get together and share a common goal. And this is exactly what we should do. And theoretically, this is all great. But in practice, practically, the big question is how. And this is one of the things we're focusing on. Through the value track methodology, we can practice what we preach. So we get from a collective value case, including the citizens' perspective, to go to calls to action. And in line with that, please let me introduce the first person to present, Martijn. Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
Perfect. You look good.
All right, thanks. Thanks. Yeah, I will give you an update on what we discussed in the meeting about space wisdom for smart cities. I asked all my panelists to give a wrap up in 2 words, which was highly complicated. So, but the good news on this is they all address the same topic. So this makes my life more easy. So the general idea of how we can create impact and what kind of programs and stimulation mechanisms we have for entrepreneurs. I only can say that it's a heads up to the willingness to see that this is a joint effort. So the collaboration between larger corporates, which we had in the audience today, about startup companies and everything which is in this spectrum. So the collaboration part is key. So multiple programs are there already, from if it's from ASA based or if it's from National Space Office based or from other industry players, so which is good. The topic we addressed also from a procurement base, for example, about governments are often seen as launching or first customers or customers. We addressed how to avoid the tech push and go from the business case and that it's an added value, it's a value add, it's a service offered. So this requires 2 things: good ideas, bright minds, which make a valuable product. On the other hand, it also needs that these entrepreneurs and these companies really need to know the essential value, what drives the innovation within government, for example. So this is, it's clear, but it can be much clearer. And in this case, we had also European network organizations like EURISI. Other network organization is ERSC, which is the organization of remote sensing companies. These can be platforms for reaching out. So crossing the bridge between government and industry, for example, not necessarily pushing some industries because they have inside information, for example, or information from governments. So they can really be a part of this innovation chain instead of, look, I give the information and I develop the prototype for someone else's product in the end. So this isn't very stimulating for the market. So takeaway on this is, I think building stronger relationship with this network organization, give them a common spot in how to tell and speak about the innovation needs of governments, for example. We addressed the space domain. We all agreed on the following, that space, you can present it as a highly complicated playground for highly skilled scientists. Might be the case. On the other hand, without Netflix, no TV viewers anymore. So for daily base and daily usage, it is how do we cross the bridge and how do we make it data available and services available based on space data, not because it's space, but because it's another reliable data source developed by already taxpayers' money via the European Union or European Commission contribution. So services are there. Of course, a remark is some services are offered by public bodies, but are they public or are they private? So what's their role in this field, and how can they stimulate the market and market developments of companies instead of being a competitor offering services funded with public money? So which is also an issue. Yeah, we addressed that there are support mechanisms, for example, in collaboration with with ESA, and well, smart cities based on space data. It addresses the topic of Earth observation, navigation, and communication, which is almost like a triangle in which everything should work. And the Netherlands is great for building prototypes and validating, but space is a global business, so we should act as a global player. So, thanks.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you, Martijn. Very interesting case. What you're talking about here is this space data. It's a whole new market, and you want to integrate it with the smart city, which is also a very complex market. So, especially in this case, it's so important that multiple stakeholders collaborate from the beginning, to adjust to one another. And what you mentioned is there, especially in this space where there is no one problem owner, one solution, the role of the government can be very important, especially as launching customer, I hear you say.
Yeah, as customer launching.
Yeah,
Customer.
so you are responsible for the space policy, and also for the innovation-oriented purchasing. What can you respond, and can you maybe give this a little boost or something?
Yeah, there are a few things which I like very much in what you said. Obviously a lot, but a few things I want to highlight. One is it's actually very good that you start with demand. So in a lot of innovations, they have a supply or technical push, and they don't think enough about what is the actual demand. What are people actually asking for? And this is something which we can create in these collaborations in a sort of co-creative construct. And for example, at the ministries we work with startups and residents, where we take them on board and try to get to the actual question and let them work on the actual question in close collaboration with the people who have the demand. And if we can flesh out the demand more clearly, also in the case of space data, in close collaboration with cities, in the case of smart cities, then we can come to actual solutions, not only supply driven, because there is a supply side to it, or technical driven, but also addressing the real demand. So this is just one example. And this is also something which we should do from a government point of view when we purchase and when we get to the offering. We have a government agency called Piano, which is actually working on that and trying to help us as government bodies to articulate their demands in an innovative way, in an open way, in an inclusive way, also to attract new people, but also to don't ask for too complete solutions, but ask for open solutions for a problem, addressing the problem rather than being specific on how it should be addressed. And in that way, you can also create a demand which is open to newcomers, which is open to innovative solutions. And this is also how we try to work with the Netherlands Space Office. And it's only good to hear that these type of organizations are on board in going forward and addressing the issues that were put at the table in your call to action.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Foko. And in this case, Joël, I was interested to ask you for your thoughts on this.
I'm listening in. It's a very broad question. I think the piano approach sounds very good. If we could do something similar for large corporations, some kind of stimulus to really work with startups, not only in the innovation department, but just in normal business. I found looking at a lot of startup and listening, it's still difficult if you're not yet a very big company with all the certifications in place to do business with the larger companies in our country and the government. So I really like this approach, but it would be great if we can have a similar, let's say, corporate sort of corporate responsibility to really embrace local startups and work with them and guide them in that and be a sort of good fatherhood for innovation in our own country by larger companies. So that's something I would like to see happen.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes. You also mentioned something about deep technologies, where you say there needs to be a vision on how we're going to deal with those entrepreneurs.
Yeah, there you definitely need the industry. If you have more deep tech innovations, you need the industry ecosystems in Limburg, in Eindhoven, and the larger companies to work with you, because simply the whole setup from scratch of a plant or production line is impossible without the industry. So there you do see more collaboration. It's also definitely needed because a normal VC route with a VC fund that has a 7-year, 10-year window doesn't work for most deep tech startups.
So actually we should move from a business case to a value case in order to really understand the potential value that can be made. I think that Bart, who's standing next to me, you might experience similar situations because you're working with the Open Geospatial Consortium. And obviously this is like deep tech, and you could see that you need multiple stakeholders to collaborate and build those value cases, right?
Absolutely. So actually, you stole much of my thunder in my response. I'm gonna.
Great.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I totally support. I wrote it down. I was like, oh yeah, I was going to say that too. So let me try a different approach, and I'm going to swear in church first before seeking for forgiveness. Space and smart cities are very much up our wheelhouse in the OGC. We provide both the interoperability specification and for Earth observation and for smart cities. It's bringing the two together. That's the interesting bit. Now, this is the piece where I'm going to swear in church. I think the space industry still is a solution looking for a problem. End of insult. But this is where the opportunity lies as well. And that's what we label as new space. Mm-hmm. We want to innovate using all the hardware, the uncountable hardware that is up there already, and make that to use for society, for an impact on society, for your words, which we totally buy into. And it's that combination of space with the space and new and smart cities is not something you'd expect. This is against the grain. Let there be no doubt. This is difficult, and that's where the opportunity is for me, and for the entrepreneurs and society to make that impact, is to turn that Earth observation data or space data, so you want, and massage it in such a way that it becomes usable for cities. Forget the smart bit, by the way. So that it becomes usable for cities. And so that, you don't have to go make a slice into a data cube and that sort of stuff. Simply find a problem that you can solve that has an impact in society. The technology is there. So that would be my first one. It's that piece of innovation. Then second, and that hasn't been named that I want to do here too, is the ground truthing element in smart cities that can help the space industry. Is the observations from space are great, but you need to compare values, and that's where the observations on the ground truthing, that's where space and smart cities are going to find themselves as well. That's where we need the entrepreneurs to pick that up and provide that back. I mean, organizations like the Group on Earth Observation GEO, that's what they're looking for right now.
Clearly two-way street, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it has to come from both ways.
Right. And so intuitively you'd say, well, it's from space to smart cities. It doesn't go the other way around. That's the piece that we need to innovate.
I think that's interesting.
Because of course, as you know, the Copernicus program also has a ground segment.
Yeah.
So, and we addressed it. It was addressed in a meeting this afternoon about you can position the space data as space, as complicated, which is sometimes done. On the other hand, it's a data source and data which can validate models based on citizen science, for example, based on other catastrophe data, for example, which are there, the Bach, for example. These are all validated data sets. The models can be fed by space data, can be made easier, better, and so on. So it's not about space as a different sector. No, it's about space, part of a system, which solves problems which are not often known by the guys who have to solve it, because innovation in the public domain is not that often that clear. And you cannot push it by a service, because if you don't know who's buying or who you are developing the service for, then that's a hard ballgame as an add-on.
I don't think we're disagreeing.
No.
Thank you for this. I also hear there's a question, but maybe you can hold it, because I really want to get to the schedule. And if there is time later, please, then you can ask your question. Because now I want to introduce the next representative. Thank you, Martijn. And that's Paul. Paul Vosbeek, he is the CEO and founder of Quintech Energy, and I think you deliver some kind of very advanced flywheel energy storage solutions. But therefore, you're also here. You're also here because to tell us, where have you been working on in the energy storage solutions, and do you see any the same issues as we have been talking earlier?
Absolutely, yeah. So thank you so much for having me. Inspiring conversations. Dave, if we have the slides, please. So I did opt to use some slides, since we have this vision that before you start to conquer space, we still have a little planet problem to solve right here. So I hope I'm not swearing in the church more than you did, but I saw you were forgiven, so I'm assuming I will too. So again, my name is Paul Vosbeek. I'm the CEO and founder of Quintech Energy. We are providing the world's most advanced flywheel energy storage solution, which was developed by the Boeing company for an aerospace program as a defense platform in space. That was discontinued. The flywheel was still here. We were able to take it on and have been bringing it over to the Netherlands and developing a Dutch company around it. So, however, that said, I'm here not on my own behalf. I'm here representing the energy storage ecosystem in the Netherlands. I will list the names later. And what we've been working on together with Linda is really trying to define what is the energy storage or energy flexibility, how can that positively impact economic growth in the Netherlands? Because everybody understands that with the increase of renewable productions and the increase of electrification and electric consumption, we're getting into an energy system squeeze. You could look at that from an energy and a climate perspective, but it actually is an economic problem. Because what you see to the right here is all those red areas are so-called congestion areas. That's areas where you have industrial parks, bedrijfsterreinen, where you have large industries, and the grid is overused. So you cannot push any more renewables onto it, and trying to get a new connection from it is also very hard. So that's the problem we need to solve. And that's what we've been working on with this large working group. And if you take us to the next slide, Dave, we can show them. So it is FME, Energy Storage NL, the folks from InvestNL, Tenet was there, which is our transmission system operator, Alliander, one of our grid operating companies, Alphen, Mott McDonald, PowerD, of course, myself, Alistor Flow Batteries, Emmet Green, Code 21 and Greener. So this is a nice cross-section of the energy storage ecosystem in the Netherlands. And it was quite interesting to get all these different people with different perspectives come together and try to grab these issues that we're looking at and try to define a very tangible path forwards. What we've done is we've divided it up into 4 cases. So there's the case grid and grid management. There's EV or e-mobility. There's industrial electrification and built environment or the urban space. So what we've done is, of course, we are working on something which is long-term. This is a long haul to solve. But what we've tried to do is to also bring it back here into tangible steps that we can take almost tomorrow. And that's the giveaway for you, or the takeaway for you to take with you. Just to go to some of these imminent next steps. And by the way, the longer calls to action, the longer term views and visions that we have will be made available in an online backup document that you can all review, as well as the audience and everybody interested. But let me go down to what's here and now. Is one of the steps we're seeing is the financial market needs to provide more risk and more growth capital. So this could be backed by the government, but also by impact funds like, for example, InvestNL. Actually, they proposed this bullet to be on there. So we put them on the spot for this one. Then here's a technical thing that we're trying to resolve is we try to create more liquidity in those congestion areas. And liquidity means that you have more players in an area that's really blocked up, that's locked in, and have more players that can provide temporary flexibility in that energy system so that you can actually make some moves, that a company that wants to expand its operations actually can, because there's a local solution to help solve a local problem, not dependent or independent of that larger transmission system issue. So that's one definitely that's key. Setting up an EU counterpart. In the Netherlands, we have a group called the Nationale Agenda Laadinfrastructuur, which translates like the National Agenda for Charging Infrastructure. That works phenomenally. We could try to start a movement to see if we could transplant that at a European level and see if we can have that adopted by other European countries, so that this great example of Dutch public-private collaboration is actually rolled out at a larger scale in Europe. Then something that we came up from our industrial electrification group, and this is specifically pointed at RVO, so it's one of your agencies, is where you recall that in the early days of the energy transition, you were able to do studies into the potential of renewable energy generation or energy efficiency scans. And I think now we've come to a point in the energy transition where you need a flex scan. So you need to offer these companies an opportunity to do a study on what they can do with adding flexibility to solve their imminent problems, and flexibility in terms of storage, demand response, collaborating with other players in their industrial areas so that you can tone down peak volume demand and match it with the available power from the grid. That's something that I think we could set up with your team before the end of the year and push it into the market as a product. And the advantage of that is you will also get a lot of data on what's really going on and where the solutions are that you should invest in and focus on. And we will get a lot of smart business cases out of it that will just make everybody be able to advance this transition more further. And of course, the execution of this all can be supported by, for example, an experiment program, again, by your ministry. So I think that's the call to action we have. And I think just as a bottom line for everybody, energy storage is the holy grail in the energy transition. In order for energy storage to be adopted, we need economies of scale. For economies of scale, we need adaptation. In order to promote adaptation, we need the government and other stakeholders to come together and really promote this market adaptation, which will then lead to larger rollout of storage, which will make prices go down to a point where the market can bear it without any structured support from the government. So that's my point. I hope that was clear. And of course, here and available for questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. It was a very clear story and a very impressive consortium you have been building together with Linda. And this is what also someone said to me today, you know, innovation is also all about people and passionate people. And I think also in your consortium, there are so many passionate people working from different angles to solve some problems. So it's thank you for that. In your consortium are lots of SMEs with solutions to storage solutions, which is also the backbone, of course. And talking about SMEs, there I come to Stefan. Stefan, you have been working with SMEs for a long time, also at the Dutch Embassy in the US, but also now in your role as an analyst, where you analyze the role of SMEs in the energy transition and what that means for policy making. So from your perspective, when you hear all this, what can you say?
Thanks, Sonja, and first, congrats for inspiring conversations today and yesterday as well. I really enjoyed it. I liked it that it's so much about linkages, that it's about connections between technology areas, but also between public-private. And I liked also what was being said before, the demand side, or I would say rather the needs side. And I tried to say something there. I mean, worked with SMEs. I mean, Paul, I mean, we met us in the United States a good 10 years ago. You look even younger and better than that time, and certainly more innovative. So great to see you. I have put myself behind the desk in Paris at the OECD, working on SMEs and entrepreneurship, where I should say, try to monitor what countries have been doing in the COVID period to support their entrepreneurs. And we do that with the aim of trying to develop a compass and tools to help policymakers to better navigate that post-COVID innovative entrepreneurial ecosystem, to do the right things there. That's quite an ambition. And of course, part of that is net zero sustainability, as you want to put it. And there, if I may, I'd like to make two brief comments where my first one actually is contradicting Paul, saying that maybe the holy grail is not the energy storage. It's actually that demand side and the SMEs, which we are forgetting continuously in these debates about entrepreneurship and reaching net zero. We talk about the innovative ones, the new things that are happening. But if you try to find data, and they're not so prevalent on greenhouse gas emissions and different types of companies, 60 to 70% of greenhouse gases actually comes from small and medium-sized enterprise. That's enormous. And what worries me a bit is that whilst that is a very important challenge that I think should, if you look at it from a needs perspective, be very central in the discussion, seems to be absent. It doesn't seem to be anywhere. And I think that there's an interesting political economy underneath that, not just that there are many data on environmental issues. I mean, you measure them in the air and not at the plant, unless you do that for environmental legislation purposes. So there's a reason why data is scarce. But I think that there's two other reasons behind there. One is our bias and our focus on large companies altogether. We keep on thinking on large ones. And if we broaden the scope a bit, we think on the innovative small ones. But on this massive group of small and medium-sized companies that account for 60% of value added, but also 60 to 70% of greenhouse gases, we tend to forget them also because these SME organizations themselves shy away in these discussions. They want to showcase their innovative brothers and sisters, but they don't want to position themselves as part of the problem. And I think that's problematic. I just spoke participated in a webinar of SME United, where I said exactly the same thing. Be careful. If you don't want to acknowledge that you're part of the problem, you risk not being seen as part of the solution or what needs help. And that I think is problematic. And the reason for that, I think we see happening in front of our eyes. And maybe a bit of COVID. I mean, there was in the first half of 2020, in the policy response to COVID, I don't think that in Foucault's team, the word MKB, SMEs, has ever used being used as often as at the time. We all had this focus on smaller companies because they were the vulnerable ones. But now we're moving to the recovery phase, to building back better, to green recovery. And what you see happening is that the mentioning of SMEs has completely disappeared. The Commission came out, the European Commission, was a zero emission action plan the other week. There's no mentioning of SME in there at all. Same with the Green Deal. So, I mean, by not being part of the problem, by not acknowledging that part of what needs to happen regards your own small business, I think in part that policymakers have this bias towards these fantastic, innovative entrepreneurs like Paul or the bigger ones, and that we tend to forget what is, in my view, where the needs, where the demands, and perhaps that holy grail lies, that is trying to find ways to make sure that we reach and engage all these small and medium-sized entrepreneurs to indeed reach net zero by 2050.
So that's another perspective, Paul. Probably you want to say about.
As Stefan did the honor of I guess disagreeing with me, I will also humbly and gently disagree with you on this one. I think I'm spending probably 4 to 5 meetings every week talking to bigger and smaller companies about their real tangible needs in terms of what they can do to reduce their CO2 emissions, which a lot of it has to do with their energy balance. You know, where is the power coming from? Where are they using it? They're still driving trucks onto their lot. They have 5 megawatts of solar. The solar is pushed back into the grid. They're not seeing anything of it. They can't use it for self-consumption. So that's where we can, if we start short-circuiting that local power generation with local demand, then you're already kicking such a big can down the road in terms of carbon CO2 emission reduction. So I think, Stefan, again, we should probably have a beer and discuss this further soon, because I think this platform is not going to let us come to a full agreement on it. But I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think SMEs like ours, we're very low in carbon footprint because most of us are virtual. All the materials we're using in our technology developments, it's all circular, and we're not dependent on international geopolitically sensitive supply chains and all that kind of stuff. So I think you'll see a whole new generation of companies arising that are very much in tune with these Green Deal policies and programs, and we're definitely one of them.
Stefan, thank you so much.
Well, yeah.
Paul, sorry.
But Stefan too.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Talking about data, this is obviously one of the big things. And by the way, talking about extremely impactful innovation, that's something that we've seen in the value track, personalized medicine and treatment. What was so interesting, and this is part of the value track, we've been looking for a call to action to realize market breakthroughs based on multi-stakeholder collaboration. And what is so interesting is that this is obviously something that is it's a global issue, though if we don't start with smaller groups to find these solutions, to work on these market breakthroughs, it is tough to keep ahead of all these innovations and all these technology innovations that are coming to market. So what we did is that we looked at ways, because, for example, TechLeap, one of our Dutch organizations, investigated what one of the main causes was why all our entrepreneurs in this area could not go to market in the Netherlands. And we even see, for example, that these people take off and they go to other continents to actually bring their products to market there, but then they stay there. So even in relation to a big other asset that we have in the Netherlands, artificial intelligence, we might lose some of the, capital in there. So the big discussion was, how can we make sure that we create like a closed loop where we get together policy making and entrepreneurship, that we close that gap. So what was interesting is that we had the investigation where the medical devices regulatory regulations are a big thing. One of our entrepreneurs, by the way, did get certified, and they're now coming back starting to roll out their business in Europe, which is Dear Health. Very interesting entrepreneurship there. And their call to action, by the way, was, since we're doing this now as a trigger, this is the kickoff of the EU entrepreneurship sessions. And then the big event is going to be held in October. Towards October, we would suggest that we profile all the stakeholders in the multi-stakeholder group we need. And then we can actually, for example, via European member states, check out who are these stakeholders in your state. Can you actually bring them to the table so we have a good solution where we can share? And they are also open to other entrepreneurs who can deliver towards their model, which is the decision-making of the doctor towards the patient and the other way around. So then people who have data or apps that deliver on all kinds of diseases, because they're now only focusing on arthritis, but everybody can join in. So that is a fast move to market for other entrepreneurs, because then they are already certified working with Dear Health. And then again, there was another person from financial services. And what they do is they provide a software called Ruler, which is focused on how can we read out the rules and deliver it to any individual dossier or case. Which means if I'm an entrepreneur and I want to go to market, then I can check here, this is what I do, this is my solution. Please let me, I don't want to read the whole book. Let me know if it's chapter 3, article 4, that's relevant for me or not. Doing that, it's also an indicator of where people actually do stop or are having trouble, where the obstacles are. And what is our decision then with regards to policy making? Are we protective policymakers or enabling policymakers? How does, for example, the Ministry of Economic Affairs deals with that in line with our Ministry of Health? And we check this, and this is actually an international asset if we could deliver this, because it will also mean that if any regulation is updated, we can automatically tell this to the entrepreneurs. And at the same time, we can understand how to deal with our investors. Because where do we invest in? Do we invest in this one entrepreneur, or do we free up the road for many by making, sites, ways where we do align to what the regulatory demands are? And this is where a group of multi-stakeholders said, this is our next call to action. We definitely want to establish this. And this is, for example, where RegMed XB, where Marianne, who helped me out here, van der Steen, thank you very much, said, this is the way that we can move forward. And she stood up, and this is exactly what we want. We want these multi-stakeholders to create a chain reaction. So there's a common thread in what we do. And this is where we can enforce one another. And this is where we can make things happen. So this was one of the calls to action that came through. We're more than enthusiastic, really. There was a big passion there where people want to work together, create all these sessions. And it starts off with the workshop from this financial services software guy who said, I already tested it with MDR. And then people said, yeah, but then it can also be focused on GDPR. So this is exactly one call to action. And in line with that, the chain reaction of positive enthusiasm. Susanne Baars, can you actually elaborate on that too?
Yeah,
and introduce yourself. Sorry, because I didn't mention your new role.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tess, for organizing this event and for everyone here. My name is Susanne Baars. I'm the Senior Global Marketing Thought Leadership Manager for Expanding Precision Medicine at Siemens Healthineers, and founder and CEO of Social Genomics, a medtech startup. We're building algorithms to match similar cancer patients to global research and treatments. And yeah, I have to say I'm so happy to be here, because what everything that has been said before as well, I recognize. And it is what we discussed in the session this morning as well. And especially I also liked from Stefan what you said, do you want to be part of this, are you part of the problem? And in many cases, I feel we can say how good we are and everything that we can, and how prominent or institutes or company might be. But in the essence, I think the real question is, why do we exist? and why do we do what we do? Why are we here? Why are we here? What is our gift or purpose? And in healthcare, I believe it's about saving lives. It's about helping people to stay healthy if they get sick, to give them access to the right treatments at the right place in the right time, and help them because they're going through an extremely difficult time. So how can we best facilitate?
And Suzanne, you said as well that with regards to the call to action, because we truly understand that vision and we definitely want to get there. But you also said you started off for yourself, having your own organization to bring that message. And at the same time, you started off with Siemens Healthineers to see how you can actually deliver the resources that they have to offer to this call to action. So in other words, it's all about the people who have the intrinsic motivation, but they can deliver the resources to that call to action based on the organizations they work for. So it's their personal ambition in line with their professional ambition, right?
Exactly. And this is where it's about connecting the dots. And healthcare is a team sport. And I believe it's now at the one hand, we are super experts, but we also need to work really closely together. How can we connect the dots? How can we better learn from each other and tap into this collective knowledge and experiences and wisdom in the world? And I think that is something here today we can realize, we need to realize, because the people and the technologies and the parties are there. So once we're connected and we start sharing, we can accelerate innovations and make that happen and ensure that people don't move to the US or to Asia, but also want to stay here.
And exactly, that was one of the other triggers that we had was with regards to algorithms. It's not only about the medicine, it's also about the algorithm. So one of the people here was Ron Herings, and he used to work together with Jeroen Maas, and they have actually build a plan. Part of their plan is also how can the Netherlands use algorithms and in line with artificial intelligence as one of our biggest assets. So this is something I would like to raise to Clémence Ros in line with the overall action plan that you're responsible for. And obviously I had the honor to read the introduction, but I'm definitely interested for you to tell the story yourself. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Thank you, Tess. Yes, this resonates so much with what the action plan is all about. The action plan is not exactly my action plan. I was asked by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and the Ministry for Health to see how we can get a real good national proposition and how we can underline this proposition with the successes that we have. And how we can connect even better than we are already connected in the Netherlands, because we have a lot of science parks and regions and so on. We're doing beautiful things. We have beautiful fireworks. But the question was, how can we build the grid better so that more fireworks can shine, and how can we position ourselves better? And the European Medicines Agency is in the Netherlands. So what does this do? This was also an interesting question. So what Suzanne said, I love to hear you speak, because there's so much energy in it. So what I did was go to all these places and ask, what are you proud of? What did you do? What is your innovation? And how come that this is a success? Tell me about the process, because we can steer on process, right? It's not that we have to invent all the wheels again or develop new fireworks, because we need all these parts of the grid to build the big grid under it. So where's the success? What are the KPIs to success? And I think it's very valuable to know that everybody says the success lies in this multi-stakeholder cooperation, but also something different. Realize that the need in the life sciences and health sector, as was said before, is there a need? Yes, it is enormous, the need. Everybody wants to be healthy, right? Everybody wants the therapy that helps. Personalized medicine, even better, you know? Yeah. Great. We want to do everything. So there is a lot of demand. It is endless. There's endless needs from the people who really could use it. So there's something different. We have impact, which is not directly visible sometimes. It takes a long time to organize the impact. And it's also dynamic and iterative. So it's not I push here and it comes there, it's not like that. So that's something in healthcare that we don't want, because politics wants immediate success, if possible. And it also must be affordable, And when there's an endless need, and when there's an endless demand, and you say, hey, it must also be affordable, then you see immediate what the problem is. We can do a lot, but can we bring it to the market? And who are the players who help us to bring it to the market in an affordable and sustainable way? So that is in the life sciences and health sector is a thingy, let's say. It's a big thing. So I think it's very good to underline that all the players in the field because everybody's inspired and wants to do it, from academia to industry, that's the whole ecosystem. But the ecosystem itself needs to think about this affordability, sustainability, and how you can do it. Because that's very important. We all do not want to pay 1/3 of our total income to healthcare insurance, don't we? But that's what's going to happen if we allow everything to come to the market. So something comes in, perhaps something must go out as well, because there's not a stretch to. We have to take into account the limits. So I think we can do it. We have a beautiful system in the Netherlands. We can improve. We know about the successes and the KPIs, and now we have to try to work together to establish a better grid, to tell to the rest of the world that we are good, because it's not so Dutch, We always say, oh yes, we are quite, well, we are fine, but not. So let's be proud of what we can do. We are connected, and the ministries want to cooperate and build it to economic affairs, healthcare. They want to build also education, but it's all about, trying to make impact and do this in a realistic and cooperative way, and not. We're a team, like you said, Suzanne. It's like a football team. You can only play the game yourself, but talk about the tactics. Talk about what you're good at, so that you can play your game at world level. I think that's it. And we can. We're good.
Great. I love you saying that we can, because we all want to team up. So very happy with your words in that sense. And also, what we really liked is that sometimes the positive side or the negative side is the Netherlands are so strict with regards to regulations, or Europe is. But what if we do manage that? Then actually we have a unique selling point in our products, because then everybody around the world knows that this is, kind of safe, or at least safer in a sense that that other countries would like. I'm not going to mention any countries, but how they would deal with that. And what is interesting is that if we look at the way we could build together on these assets, also looking at data, also looking at how this was dealt with during, obviously, this COVID experience, I think that Harmjan, I would like to introduce you, because then we'll go to the next value track, which is people flows. And that means people moving in public crowded places seamlessly from A to B.
Yes, and I can invite also, because this actually is all about collaboration. So I'd like to invite Miranda as well, Miranda Jansen from the Rotterdam Innovation Airport. So please make a short introduction of yourself.
Okay, now short, I will try. Rotterdam Innovation Airport is a network, about 70 partners, enterprises, knowledge institutions, and governmental organizations, regional as well as national. So that's not much, but what is important that there are no free riders. All partners in the network work together on their ambition, their shared ambition, and the ambition is to transform the Rotterdam Airport into an airport for innovation, part of a new district for sustainable aviation, because I'm not from the aviation sector, but I found out that there is a lot of aviation connected industries in the region of Rotterdam and The Hague. And that's an important industry because they deliver parts to the big ones in the world, the Bombardiers, the Boeings, etc. And so there really is a perspective on contributing to sustainable aviation for the world from the Netherlands, made in Holland, exported to the world. But we need to join forces. We need to create a operational airport, which is a lab for innovation, surrounded by an area which gives space, literally, to innovative enterprises and knowledge institutions. And that's what we are working on. And of course, people flows, seamless passenger journey, using data, realizing sustainable energy, creating talent with new educationals, etc. all comes together. So it's a mini world in which we try to create a sustainable economy by digitalize, doing energy transition and innovate at the same time functionally, but also connected to a region. Something like that?
Yes, absolutely. And so you see, so my name is Harm. I'm the CEO of iLabs Technologies and founder of Chief Strategy Officer of Okudu, an identity company. And so what we found is that privacy can be an export product. We have been looking at the challenges in different value tracks, in personalized medicine, in people flows. How can we deal in times of crisis, but also for building a digital sustainable economy and society that we feel comfortable with? But we need the tools, we need the technologies that keep us safe and seamless with traveling. And seamless traveling is all about the experience. So when you book your flights, when you go at the airport, when you are automatically recognized and you can check in without touching even and without losing your privacy or giving away biometric data. And I think the Netherlands has demonstrated in times of crisis that public services can come together. So we had in our value track, we had Brian that is part of the Dutch development team for developing the Corona check apps. So this is all about collaboration, the public sector on technology and private sector. Royal Haskoning, and more an engineering company that is looking at crowded places, crowd management. How can we apply those technologies that comes from different technology areas, artificial intelligence, video? How can you apply that in a way that Smart Distance Lab and Tessa from the research organization has demonstrated it can be done. It can be done to see and to organize even events like this with physical distancing, with safety and protection. So what we come up to with this local experience is that it's good for our today to experiment with these technologies, but actually to scale this, it needs an international level of playing field. So we reached out to the ID 2020 organization with the Good Health Pass. And it's a timely activity because they just released this week the blueprints for specifications of interoperability of the Good Health Pass. It's the digital COVID certificate, the EU digital COVID certificate, but not just Europe, right? It's an international, it's a global world. So we need to be in a global level of playing field. I feel the Netherlands has the capabilities to really make an impact by demonstrating the small steps, the little pilots, that we need physical locations, that we need the location data, that we need to join up. And so our calls to action is really about that. Leverage what we have built in terms of relationships with global organizations and initiatives, but also bind that to our local community and relationship that we have been able to build and leverage what's needed, the physical infrastructure, the ecosystem, the collaboration that is in place, and then see, okay, how can we tie this in a short term, maybe October timeframe, longer term, G20 or the session field. So that's what we are now aiming at. And I think we come to a great plan for that.
Ramian, thank you so much. That it was indeed like a really vibrant session. And it started off a little bit like speed dating. So people just go boom, boom, boom. And everybody in the beginning says, how come I don't have like 30 minutes to talk? Because it's not about just sending the message and keep sending the message and another time keep sending the message. It's about for people to get in their heads, okay, how can I make connections? And that's where it really kicked off. And where we saw that Royal Haskoning said, okay, well, then we'll host one of the sessions. You've been interested in, in the beginning you were, and then you said, okay, then we'll join in as well. So people take it from there. And that it's so important to get that continuity, even to the level where you came in and you sat with all these sessions and you said, wow, I can see the crossovers as well, because looking at what we do at OGC, we just started off when COVID started looking into health situations. So what was really important is that there is a crossover from one group of experts to the other. And we could even see, because we profiled the stakeholders again, that you can almost lift up one eco network of people working on a call to action in one space to the other. And that was interesting, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can't say no now. Huh? I'm next to you.
You set the expectations there. Talking about setting expectations. Not sure I'm going to explain this to my wife. Where were you the past 2 days, Bart? Well, I did speed dating and it was boom, boom, boom. All right.
Good luck. Yeah.
So no, trêve de plaisanterie, as they say in French. It's been a great 2 days. Let there be no doubt. I think for me, really, the high point, personally, is just in a controlled way, seeing people again and making new connections. Mm-hmm. Miranda, we connected today, which was thank you, which was online would never be possible. Yeah. Right. So just wanted to make that point that getting together physically is really needed.
And you, what I liked as well, invited us to come up with an idea how we can introduce these big, ideas and calls to action to present it during your meeting in September. Yep. So this, again, like you said, working from the ground to make sure that you can reach out globally and share that expertise, because otherwise we'll work in silos. And that's a big waste. And if we have the transparency, we can make decisions from a policy-making perspective as well. Fine if some of these entrepreneurs need to go elsewhere to implement, but let's keep, what is a finger in the pop? Is Dutch in the parade?
Yeah, that's very Dutch.
Let's keep connected and make sure that we do learn from it. And, the intellectual capital and the societal capital is also a real important part.
Right. Yes. So I said, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
at RIA, our motto is...
No, sorry.
Use the mic.
Sorry. At RIA, our motto is think big, do small, because what we are in our ecosystem developing will be made in Holland, but exported all over the world. So we have several projects who realize this motto. And I can talk about that for hours.
No, just adding to that. So within the OGC, we have our meetings every quarter. The next one's next week, where we're going to have a transport ad hoc. And so, a shameless plug for my own meeting here, that you're all invited, meet.ogc.org. And there's also a health session on Thursday. So
what are you doing on Thursday? No, we're in. So to continue with this vibe, and so Clémence, actually, this is exactly what you said as well. It's about iterative learning, iterative innovation, and this is exactly what happened. So it was really cool to experience, even if I say it to myself. From there, talking about iterative and focusing, Joël, You also introduced us to one of the big entrepreneurs, Jonathan Berthe, who was explaining that from an artificial intelligence perspective, he could apply this in so many areas. And I would like to know from you as well, how do you see this? Where do you see how we can enable all these solutions for the future?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, in the case of RoboVision, I think indeed that can be rolled out to many, many industries. But we also need to look at the stages the startups are in, because when we talk about multi-stakeholder collaboration, that the more stakeholders, the more time it takes. And depending on where a startup or scale-up is in their, is it a baby, a toddler, a child, a teenager, or an adolescent, they can participate in that. So I talked about the ladder yesterday, but depending on where a startup is in the ladder of maturity, they can handle a multi-stakeholder collaboration with larger players. Because what I hear back is if it's too many larger players, it costs them so much time, and maybe for over a year, the burning money and the savings. So we need to also find a way fitting each age or stage of startups to make that multi-stakeholder collaboration. In the beginning, maybe simpler and more agile, and further on, bigger and more impactful. But yeah, we're working on it, and that's good. Making
Great
progress. So I'm really happy with this, and good to see everything coming together. And everybody. Thank you.
As I mentioned before, we have another online participant, and that's Paul Iske. I'm glad I can see you now. Paul is professor at the Open Innovation at Maastricht University and has been also a participant in our sessions earlier. Paul, if you hear all this multiple stakeholder collaboration and this whole new way of working from a more systematic point of view, what can you say about the future from here?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I want to make a very big compliment for the past 2 days and also the whole preparation. It all stands and falls with, on the one hand, the topics, of course, that have been addressed, but also the people that have been brought together. And I think it's extremely valuable what has happened in the past 2 days. You call this a new way of working. Actually, it should be an old way of working. People just coming together, discussing ideas, discussing dreams. And what we can do now is something that we could not do before, is bring people together from various areas. Technology enables that. But most importantly, also because we are connecting now new networks, then the new possibilities emerge. And I see it happens while we are experiencing it. And I think that is extremely valuable. It gives us a lot of energy, and that energy was also tangible in the past 2 days. I think the challenge will be, and I'm pretty sure that Tess and everyone else who is involved is aware of this, that we need to keep up we need to maintain that energy, and we need to also get to results. And I think it is a very important, and I also want to compliment the ministry, including Clemens and Peter, all the energy and the support they give to this development. But we should also repay more or less all that energy we are obliged to ourselves. Because if I see all these great people, and we have seen very, very interesting people presenting what they're doing, and I was, of course, I'm a little bit more involved in also in the personalized medicine and in the people flows. Fantastic new technologies, fantastic companies, Dear Health, very beginning companies like RCT Alert, the work from Ron Herings that I know very well. It is a lot of energy and a lot of knowledge inside. And there is one thing that I think that why this is so important, there is a structural underutilization of all that intellectual capital, of all that entrepreneurial capital. And I see this as a way to reduce that underutilization. And I see low-hanging fruit, it was mentioned already previously. And I think the best thing we can do is keep our eye on the future, but also keep our eye on the short term, see what we can do together in very short notice to prove to ourselves that this is energy well spent. And I think that we are tremendously helped by the structure that has been given via the value tracks, via this meeting, the meetings that are coming. And I think it was also mentioned before, and that's very important. It is not a process that goes from one meeting to the next meeting. It is what is most important is what is happening in between. So I would really stimulate us and ourselves to, as soon as this meeting is over, to make appointments and to have our own roundtables, our own conversations, and report to each other. And another thing that I think is very important is learn. We have to learn because we are doing this now. It was called a new approach. Well, what is new is the structural application of this methodology. But we have to learn what works and what doesn't work. And we have to share that learnings as well. So looking forward to the coming period, I think these are my recommendations. Use the energy, use all these fantastic ideas and opportunities. Involve people that we, and that's good about our culture, especially the Dutch culture, but I think that applies everywhere to Europe. If you approach people, if you ask questions, you get answers. So don't hesitate to ask questions. Don't hesitate to approach people. You see, we got these people together. There was no problem at all to get people in this room because we took action, because we approached them. So go out, be interested, share what you want to share. And I think then in October, but most importantly, also in between, we will have results. We will have a buildup of this energy. And again, I think we are very much helped by the fact that we are facilitated. We are helped by the fact that there is a structure and that we also recognize where we are in that process, who we can approach, who can help us. And if we put this all together, I think it's a tremendous opportunity to do things that we were not able to do before. And personally, I'm very much looking forward to see what comes out of that.
Woohoo! I like it. Says we have a busy summer with all those appointments.
Yes, exactly. We were thinking like after this event, we can take a rest. But no way.
Sorry, Tess. We should have discussed before. Otherwise, I would not have said it. No.
I know. I'll be honest. I actually got more energy out of this whole session. You know, now I need to storage it, obviously, but we'll find a way.
You have storage solutions.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the last thing I want to say, but that's exactly the point that you make here. If you think, my business principle is very simple, is giving and taking. And I think if you organize it in the right way, everyone can get more out of it than he or she is putting into it. And if you achieve that, then you have achieved your mission.
Exactly. So that smart matching will continue. It's a chain reaction. And Foko, maybe you could indeed react on that by closing and showing that you're part of the chain reaction too, obviously.
Obviously,
in many places.
Yeah, obviously I am. We began by saying entrepreneurship is very important. So we have a lot of challenges that we need solutions for. And bringing the stakeholders together, we should all have a mindset of entrepreneurship, of making things possible, enabling. That also is true for government. And a second thing, and I'm totally agreeing with Paul, which is what is very important, and I learned during my career, is that you never should try to solve a problem by making the problem smaller. You should make it bigger. It gives you more degrees of freedom to get to the solution. And that is the way we should work and talk about innovation. Try new combinations, find each other. And with new combinations, as Schumpeter said, and neue Kombinationen, that leads to new inventions, that leads to innovation. That's what we need. And the third thing, which is also very important, and why we were talking also in English, is because if we only think of the Netherlands, that's too small. A lot of you have said we should think big, and we should look for ways to lever this internal market, to lever the European size, and to ensure that our great ideas have a breathing space and have a space where they can actually thrive here right in the Netherlands within a European context. And I think these are three very important elements that should bring these actions, these lines, calls to action that we have into actual deeds, because we have talked a lot of words, but actions speak louder. So we should go to the action. And indeed, we are working towards a new get-together in October with the European Entrepreneurship Summit and the Sasson Field. which is very fine, but then we should show the progress, and then we should show what we have achieved in the meantime. And we are certainly part of it. You can count on us.
That's great. It's nice because everybody in the room already said, oh, but then it's, enterprise, European Enterprise Summit. What about the rest of the world? And then we said, okay, we'll be brave. We'll announce there what the calls to action are on a global level.
Yeah.
Very
anyhow,
good. We're scaling.
Yeah, we're scaling. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
you also, viewers there. I'm sorry to say we go on the roof terrace to have a cold beer. You can't, but next time hopefully you will join us again. And hopefully see you also in October 14 and 15 at the Sessenfield and European Entrepreneurship Summit. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.